United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, 4.0, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion by
Second.
Mark, second by Marge. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. 5.0, public comments, recognition of visitors to the board. Lake Park Audubon Schools welcomes you to the meeting of the Lake Park Board of Education. While this is a meeting of the board to conduct business of the school district, the board is not statutorily compelled to hear comments. We also desire to provide an opportunity to hear from members of the public, including staff and students, on matters of interest. This portion of the agenda will be limited to a total of not more than 30 minutes unless otherwise determined by the board. Individual speakers are asked to limit their comments to not more than 3 minutes. The board requests that all comments be in keeping with and contribute to an atmosphere of civil, courteous, thoughtful, and respectful public discourse. Board members and administration will not respond to comments at the meeting. Appropriate responses will be provided at a later time, or comments may lead to future board agenda items. Thank you for attending. Do we have any public comment? Okay. 6.0 reports, student representation. There is none, it looks like. Board committee reports, negotiation committee. Sky, you want to take that one?
Sure. We are closing tonight to kind of run through some kind of general ideas regarding the teacher negotiations coming up. We did have a first meeting with them last week to kind of go over our norms and how kind of what our goals are. And we set up another date here at the end of the month to kind of get started on some language items. We talked with the EA at the same time, and kind of financial stuff will probably be waiting till mid or later June, kind of depending on when the legislature comes out with what funding we'll be doing. But we're hoping to do something similar to the principal's contract, where we kind of do an overhaul of a lot of the language stuff and clean it up. So anyways, more to come on that tonight. And then up for approval on the agenda tonight is the principal's agreement. We met 3 different times with them in the last little bit and hammered out some language. That comes up in the agenda later. If anyone has any specific questions on that, you can ask them. Any questions?
Thank you. Growth and long-term planning committee. Jason, I don't think you were at
I wasn't
that
able to attend the last one.
I was in attendance, so we met virtually again, and it was really just a lot of kind of updating that committee on where we are at as a board and the process we're taking. Very, very, very good discussion though at that meeting. Just talking about the middle school model, the needs in the schools. I don't know, Dr. Henry, if you have more to add.
I think what was great is that the committee reminded us that they began with a plan for educating students and what that learning environment looks like. And so that was a good thing to remember, that in the building, when we build, we want to build at the elementary level. And if we do proceed with exploring the middle school, that it would be more great collaborative learning spaces for students. And they did talk a lot about opportunities with team and more career planning. So I think overall they were very positive about continuing with the emphasis on improvements for kids. It's all about kids.
Yeah, both team and BTD had representation at that meeting, and they both spoke a lot to just come and their needs, talking about, you know, kind of the common core, the math, or applied math, excuse me. And so that was really great feedback to hear from them as well. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, 6.2, Finance Committee. Who's taking that one? Dave?
I got it. Yeah, we met on the 18th. We went over the budget projections and where we currently stand. The numbers are a little bit different compared to previous years, which is understandable. But overall, nothing too too outside of the ordinary. I think Amanda's doing a good job of reviewing the funds and correcting some minor errors that have possibly taken place in the past. Going over the fund balance, currently it's at 24%, but there's a lot of unknowns coming into the next school year. So Amanda recommends keeping it up at around that 20 to 24% level. So she's still finalizing the budget, but she's got a pretty good handle on that. Went over a couple of other areas we're investigating as far as flexibility and possible cost savings to the school district, but that's just under investigation right now. See, talked about Minnesota High School League fees, and then gave the GNR bill that is in the meeting minutes for approval here for the heating unit in the elementary school. And the CTE position, we talked about that a little bit. That was the main thing. There will be some funding coming in this next round of the $1.9 trillion funding from the government. Not exactly sure what that funding is going to be, but it's going to be aimed at like COVID-related issues, mental health, summer school, and health-related things, but tied back to COVID. So I'll leave the rest of it for any comments that Paula has.
Dave, can I, just one point that I had in my notes from the meeting is Amanda talked about the state and that there is the 2 and 2 for funding that we get is not 100% committed to yet, and that we probably wouldn't know until June on that. So that's all I got. That's not the same.
Do you have anything to add, Dr. Hunt, to that report? You did a great job.
Any questions? Okay, moving on to 6.3 Business Manager Amanda Scanson. It looks like reporting but not presenting.
Correct.
So those reports were attached in your board packet. Are there any questions on those? Okay. 6.4 Principals, Craig.
Yeah, it's the time we're looking at spring testing. Last year that was waived by the federal government, and then the state government applied for that waiver. This year it will be required to do all the spring statewide testing that we have in the past. How that's reported publicly and what it means for students, like different designations of like needing improvement or different pieces in the state, is kind of still up for debate and still receiving guidance from the state, but it has been clear that we will need to take them. They did move the deadline now, usually up until like May 10th to do the science, and it's like May 2nd or so to do math and reading. You can go up until May 21st now. I don't think we'll change our schedule. You know, you think of testing students the last week of school, probably aren't going to get the most accurate results to base things on. So we'll stick with our normal timeline. And then just a note that we will be required to test distance learners. So at this point, looking at the flex days in the month of April to invite them in to do their testing, or they can come in during the different small groups and that, but we will be reaching out to all of our distance learners in 3rd grade and up to schedule those statewide testing, or at least make the opportunity available to them. We had a Raider rally, just wanted to give a shout out to our elementary PBS, another opportunity, our 3rd through 6th graders, to make sure we're acknowledging those students that are the ones that always don't get the acknowledgement. They're not demanding your attention all the time, but they're getting green slips, they're doing well academically, they're respectful, responsible, and ready. Usually that's 3rd through 6th grade kind of all come together and we do it at once. A little bit easier to pull off as a staff, but of course this year that's not possible. So just a shout out to our committee. Different staff volunteered their lunch or their preps to take them into the gym or outside. And every grade, 3rd through 6th, got 2 different options of what they could do on there, and then to acknowledge those students that have met those expectations of what it means to be a Raider. Open to feedback on this one, but at this moment, if things stay similar to where they are, with the majority of our staff having received vaccinations, and this where local numbers are at, looking at doing a spring field trip per grade level. That's another one of those rites of passage and memories for our students. Also, if there's a year to come together and celebrate and kind of, you know, all that we accomplished this year, feels like this year is the year as well. And that light at the end of the tunnel for our students and staff, something to kind of work towards this year. And we've tried to recreate all the memories, but there's certain things that they missed out on just due to the different guidelines. So we're looking at doing that. being strategic with it. Our adults will still wear masks even if we're outside like we do at school. We'll schedule it May 13th to the 27th, so that would allow, that's like the third to last Thursday. So there'd be 3 Fridays in there basically that could get scheduled over. Not many are gonna do a field trip the last day of school, so basically 2 Fridays most of them will hit. The thinking there is if we did have to quarantine, if we did have a student be positive, we don't have 100 families that have to do distance learning for 2 weeks. It'd be really unfortunate. We wouldn't do it if we thought that was gonna happen. But worst case scenario, those students would get summer break a week earlier, a week and a half early. Not our intention, and if we thought it would happen, we wouldn't be doing field trips, but kind of that worst case scenario, it's not gonna throw off the schedules of the whole school or spread throughout the whole school at that piece. And then grade levels will look for either outdoors or an open air field trip. But excited to offer that to preschool on up to 6th grade there. It's kind of another fun way to celebrate at the end of the year. We had our spring conferences. It was on my last agenda, but I missed that meeting. Just worth shouting out again to our community, 97% attendance. So there's, again, a lot of schools have to work really hard and do lots of incentives to get that attendance in a normal year. And we're very fortunate that that's just our norm. So even if we switch to Zoom or other means, our families go out of their way to connect with our staff. So we're really appreciative of that. More feedback on our skill-based report cards, just generally well received. It's narrowing that focus, it's more specific, and answering that question of what can families work on at home. So instead of a student doing well in math or struggling in math, it's broken down by those skills so you can see as a parent, what skills are they showing mastery in and which one do they need more support in. So good feedback there, and those initiatives we undertook last year. There'll be more tweaks this year. You will see on the agenda, Taylor Reichel is up for your approval for special education position. We held interviews on the 16th and 17th. She's a WIN teacher, so she does math and reading academic interventions, which will model what she would be doing with your approval in special education. She'd go back and pursue a master's in special education, which would get her a special ed license within the next 5 years, but she could work 5 years under a variance due to rules within Minnesota. And then we do have more interviews scheduled on this Thursday, the 25th, to fill our second open position on that piece that has been filled by Lake Agassiz in the past, but they're going to unable to fill it next school year. So, but that's gone well, and glad to have applicants and a good list of pools of candidates to sort through. Starting to work on class lists and schedules for next year. That's just kind of in progress. Just a note. With everything going on this year, it's hard to look towards next year. It's kind of exciting to some of that, but that is kind of starting as well. And then I just got asked to touch on the flex days briefly, and could certainly answer more questions as well. But currently they're scheduled through April 28th and have been communicated out. Just a result of the extra time our staff's putting in, where they're doing morning recess, after school recess, or supervising their classrooms during lunch. It's resulted in really being able to move forward as a building. That most schools have kind of put professional development kind of on pause for this school year. Really excited that we've been able to close that gap or move ahead in many areas to still move forward. And then also it allows us all those extra pieces our staff are doing. So we had to quarantine 7th, 4th graders last week. Most schools in our area, there's 22 kids in that class, all 22 would be out. When we started at the beginning of the year talking to local health departments, and Paul was on the phone call, they were surprised how detailed we could say our close contacts are. They asked for copies of our plans to propose to other schools. So all those extra things our teachers are doing on a daily basis, that saved 14 students from having to be quarantined because of all the extras, because they aren't in the lunchroom and all those other times that they're giving up. And then also I know before Christmas break, it's been resulted in we are one of the top in the state, if not the top in the amount of days we've offered. Before Christmas break, we were one of 24 schools that was in person just before break. Having known a lot of those other schools, many of them have already taken a pause or had to quarantine at some point. So we're either the best in the state or tied for the best in the state, providing the most amount of days in person for our students. So what plan that we set out has worked. It's been a lot of dedication from our staff, a lot of sacrifices from our staff and our students as well. But we have been able to provide more in-person days, not only this year, but throughout the rest of the year too. So we're really happy that we're able to, regardless of which school your student may go to, anywhere in the state of Minnesota at LPA, they receive the most in-person days. So we're really proud of that and what we've been able to do for students. Some of the student benefits from those flex days as well. Our BIT team, which is our behavior intervention team, I don't think we've had a flex day we haven't met for 2 hours. So that's really talking about students in crisis or behaviors or that are struggling and which supports that we should be giving them as a school. Obviously, it takes a lot to map those out and get those supports in place. So I think our last flex day is a 3-hour meeting, but they haven't all been quite that long, anywhere from about 1.5 hours to 3 hours. We have a new reading curriculum, so we'll be on our 4th program that we're going to pilot this school year. And we really have about 20 minutes to meet outside of those flex days, either before or after school each day. And these are the longer meetings that we wouldn't be able to move forward from if it wasn't for your support of those flex days. So getting a reading curriculum that better meets the needs of our learners that are in front of us. We implemented our math curriculum and are looking for 1/6 rate, which is also needed. Many of these haven't been updated in over a decade. Reached out to distance learners. Sometimes it's just making a connection on those days. We've had a couple families that have been comfortable sending their student in for those couple Wednesdays a month since there's not other students in the building. So it's been nice to have those in, as well as parent meetings for some of those families that these are tough times for, that we know are going to take longer than that 20 minutes, so we can make sure we hear them and work towards solutions during that meeting as well. Sure, at the board level, just grade level meetings, looking over our data, what was the impact from last spring, where did students come in this fall, and what do we need to do to adjust, not only to start catching them up this spring, but that's going to be a multi-year effort, and really that goal of closing that gap totally by next spring is that goal, and looking and reflecting on that. Everything that just can't be taken for granted, whether it's track and field, winter fun day, kindergarten registrations, everything looks different this year. So having meetings and just laying out what those would look like. We had some need for some training, some crisis prevention training for some of our staff and students. And that's a 4-hour training. Just last Friday, we were 3 subs short. I mean, that's kind of just the norm this year. So those trainings outside of flex days are tough to pull off. So it's been nice to still give that for our teachers and for our students really that need it. And then things that are less exciting like MCA training, but it still needs to be done at some point. Some things that are just more for staff, but roundabout affect students too. We've been able to carry on at our PLCs during that time and other staff development. The big one I know are K through 2 or preschool through 2 teachers are looking forward to this coming flex day. Taylor Anderson from Lake ABC, our OT, a Size Matters handwriting program that has like huge results in the small amount of students that she's implemented it with. So we'd really like to provide that to all of our students to teach it through our tier 1 or our classroom teachers. So we have that training set up, meeting with mentors. This one's actually formally with me through a mentor check-in, but meeting with their mentors off months as well. Need to create class lists for next year. And again, some of these things that are bigger tasks. Had many leadership meetings, staff meetings, planning snow day plans, not big impacts on students, but things that need to get done nonetheless. Our MCA training, report cards, edits, and then other staff. So just some of the reasons that flex days have been appreciated on there and some of the uses for that. Our enrollment keeps just ticking up slightly, so that's a good thing. Distance learners changes on the report, it says 29. As of today, it's 22, and just kind of more context of where things are at this year. On the 5th of March, there was 32. On the 11th, there was 20. On the 12th, there was 28. On the 15th, there's 22. On the 19th, there's 18. It's just that forever changing kind of piece. We got a couple other pending tests out there too, so that number could change as of this evening. And that's just kind of the realities of this year, just making those things work and adjusting on the fly. And we have the right staff in place to do it.
Are your distance learners like the kids who are quarantined at home, or are there kids who are choosing to distance full time?
We are about 18 that are choosing to, and then the others are the ones that are quarantined, so are counted as distance.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
Mr. Barr, what's your educated guess as to going back to face-to-face conferences next fall?
We're hoping, and I mean, might as well throw a hope out there, but we'll wait for state guidance. But I'm hoping things are back to normal next year with the amount of vaccines that are out there and that too. But yeah, and I think it's something we might offer. We might offer the option of Zoom. I think our teachers preferred in person. I know I did. Zoom conference night for principals is a pretty boring deal, which is okay to get things done, but it's nice to walk the hallways and get to know people and form those relationships. But there were other families, like working family with 4 kids, that have said Zoom was great. Like I didn't have to have 3 kids running around as I'm jumping in one meeting. It didn't matter if they were back to back or spread out. We could have supper in between. So I do think our families will like to see that option moving forward, but we would like to get back to in-person as kind of our norm or a less requested.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Barr? Mr. Meyer?
Craig always gets the advantage on me.
We need to mix it up next time, just for you.
I like the way it goes.
So I'm gonna say ditto on a lot of, like our distance learning Wednesday, with our learning model. We are providing 4.5 days of instruction. Students want to be here 5 days a week, we're offering that. We have been averaging between 20 and 30 students per Wednesday or afternoons. I did send a survey out to the teachers after the last board meeting, just so, like, Dave kind of asked me, like, what are we doing with those, and like, how do we like synchronize? Is it synchronize? What is? I said, so I sent a survey out to teachers, and that's what I have in your board packet. And I don't want to be here for half an hour, so there's 5 pages of information on what the teachers are using them. I think a lot of it, you read through it, a lot of it has, they're helping students one-on-one time that they don't get to during the regular day to work with the distance learners. A lot of them thank you for providing that extra time. And I think the big thing is if we didn't have distance learners, then we would be in person 5 days a week. But the amount of, we just don't, they're just as important to us as the students that are here, and to provide our students with the extra, the nature of education. We care about every student. And I think that's what our staff here is saying in their comments is, we just don't want to leave one kid unattended, so they put in a ton of extra time to be able to provide our students with a great opportunity at LPA here. So a lot of what Craig said, like the principal groups I've been in, we are again in the top 10% of all schools providing in person. I think a lot of it goes to our staff and students on just, and parents on keeping us in person and following the safety precautions, and it's been a lot smoother than I think a lot of people thought as we went through the school year. It's, I think, like I mentioned before, it's not the perfect model, but it is something that I think is that perfect balance between both sides has been working on providing staff with what they are looking for, and then also the students what they are looking for. Any questions on the surveys or? Like I mentioned before, there's 20 to 30 students, and that has been going really well. They are doing their Google Meets in the morning with their teachers. Then they're having lunch, and then after that, it's the one-on-one time. I've gotten many phone calls from parents of appreciation students are appreciating outside sources have contacted me on, they haven't heard any other schools kind of that are providing something like this, that extra support. So I'm proud that we're doing that here. Our after school credit recovery program was mentioned at the last board meeting. We did start that. We were in week number 3. It is an Apex, it's an online learning program that goes, it follows the Common Core curriculum of the Minnesota standards. Right now we have 56 students that are signed up in the areas of language arts, science, math, and social studies. We're doing 3 weeks of language arts. We'll finish that up this Friday. And then we're going to progress to science, then the math, and then the first summer school session will be social studies. And we're going to see how the students do this semester, on how many more students would be being offered this for summer school. Typically, in a typical year, the students wouldn't get a head start in this until, I believe it was right before the end of summer or end of the school year, the last week, and they were put on a cell list. This is the program that we're running with the Detroit Lakes TLC. It is all funded through them, so they're getting per pupil, and then they're paying for our staff member to run it here. So Mr. Conrad and Mrs. Alexic are the 2 that are the main ones that are in our building that are running the online program here. Right now, students are they like it. It's user-friendly, and it's nice for the staff because they have people they can connect with on running the after-school program. Snow days was March 1st through the 5th, and in your packet there are the candidates. We had some bingo here. We had talent show and dress-up days as we went through our snow days. We reviewed our math curriculum roughly about a month ago. We're going to meet again. I do believe it is March 31st there were some different companies that we were in contact with, and we're going to meet again on reviewing our math curriculum. Our school calendar committee met, and they have a proposed calendar. I do believe it'll be proposed at the next board meeting. We had ACT testing on Wednesday, March 3rd. We had 28 students that went through the testing. They said, I was in doing an observation the next day, and Mr. Conrad did like a debriefing. So it was interesting to see what the students thought about the ACT testing. So when they debriefed, they just got to say everything that stressed them out. And they just say it's a lot of information in a short period of time. They felt like they were prepared in certain areas and not prepared in others. We're going to work on that on the areas that they feel like they could be more prepared in. But it was just kind of interesting to get their point of view, and we'll take their advice and try to make it better for next year. We had our music concert. It was posted on Tuesday, March 16th. So we had Sam Bestie did a great job of, it was his idea to post it live at 7 o'clock, and I think that was, you had a chance to look at it. If you haven't, it's on our website. It's a great concert to go with that. This Wednesday, we are going to meet with the science curriculum. We're going to meet with Mr. Barber's group with the earth science is now being slotted into a different grade. So we need to make a transition. So we're going to meet with the 6th grade teachers and our science staff here on how we can incorporate that into year 2022-23. Is they're going to flip-flop science, earth science, and physical science with the 8th and 9th grade. The end of our third quarter is this coming Friday. We'll have report cards out in the mail by Wednesday. We're already talking senior cap and gown pictures on April 8th. We're starting to have that conversation. Jazz band is asked, and I'm going to give them the okay, is they would like to have a live concert. So we're going to start following the guidance that has been recommended to us. So Mr. Eklund would like to have a live concert. We've done everything virtual. We're going to start to transition. There's new guidance that has been sent out, so we're going to follow the guidance. And then we go along with, if we flip down to a little bit farther, spring music concert on May 12th, the same thing. Ms. Jordan and Mr. Eklund are planning on doing a live concert to go with that. As long as things keep on progressing and the guidance allows us to, I think that's a way to get us back to a little bit of normalcy and kind of what we've been looking for all year. And like Mr. Barr mentioned, all of them are listed on the MC testing starting on April 12th through the 29th. And then prom is scheduled for May 15th. Again, on this coming Wednesday, they're going to have a webinar where they're going to discuss what prom could look like and what graduation could look like. At 10:30 on Wednesday, we'll listen to a webinar on kind of what we can and cannot do as we progress in our planning for those two. And then our master class schedule, I'll present a rough draft at the next board meeting. We got a good start on it, and we're just going to keep progressing through and have a rough draft too by the next board meeting. And our enrollment is staying steady. It's the exact same as last month with 333. And then our distance learners last month was at 45, and we're back up to 54 this month. Again, some choose and some are quarantined to get to that number. Are there any questions?
How are our struggling students doing? I know a while back we had quite a few of the distance learners that were in risk of failing. Are they continuing to improve?
Yeah, I think we had that our ineligibility list, and like at halfway through the first semester, we had like 40-some% of our kids, and we got it down to 15% by the end of the semester. And it's kind of that roller coaster where this Friday will be the telling tale. We're at the end of our quarter on where we're sitting. And our staff's working hard to connect with those kids that are struggling. They have a chance before school where they can connect by Zoom. They can before school, after school, advisory time. Wednesday afternoons. There's a lot of opportunities, and Reed is also been connecting with those same students on making that connection to the kids that are struggling.
Good.
Any other questions for Mr. Meyer?
Those MCA results, that comes out in the fall, right?
Yep.
Any other
I just
questions?
heard from other, like North Dakota, their test's a little bit different, but the Hillsborough, I was listening on the radio, he said, you'll be surprised. Everybody thought the state test scores were gonna be so much lower with the achievement gap. He said, you'll be surprised that the students actually did they listened, like during the distance learning piece. I'm hoping that's our surprise here too.
All right, thank you. 6.5 Activities Director Kyle Huberman. There's a report attached, but he's not presenting anything, is my understanding. Any questions on those, on that report? Okay. 6.6, Superintendent Dr. Henry.
Thank you. I did give you a handout, and I thought I would cover the strategic plan again and look at how it works with the Due North plan from the governor. So I thought, well, why should we do that? Why should we focus on both of those? But I think as you look at the draft that I put together, and it's just a draft how I mixed the Due North and the strategic plan together, it is really about many things that we're already doing. So in the Due North, the governor is stating that every student receives a world-class education. I think that's no less than what we expect here. That every child is taught by caring and qualified educators. Again, what we expect here. Every child learns in a safe and nurturing environment. Equity in education. And then I have questions. So what can we celebrate and what would we need to do differently as we plan forward? And what are the barriers to more fully embracing the strategic plan and Due North together? Thirdly, what resources, professional development, or professional supports do we need to overcome any barriers that we might have? And then lastly, what contributions can we as individuals make to help facilitate the desired change? So we'll review really briefly, and we review it because it is our compass. Our strategic plan at Lake Park Audubon is our compass, and the governor's Due North really fits very well with it. And it is about our kids, that every student receives a world-class education. So if you look at our belief statements again, I often read these because they're really important and they are powerful. So if we believe that before any meaningful learning can take place, we must build relationships between students, staff, and the community. And oftentimes, we hear, well, we want kids to learn the content, but before any content can be learned, we have to build that connection with them. And the Due North, you'll see that that's in the governor's plan as well. And we believe in providing challenging, engaging, and innovative programming for all students to prepare them for success in a changing world. We believe in challenging growth in academics, personal development, and values, relationships, all for the future success and well-being of all students. All students have value and deserve an opportunity to learn. We believe each student has the responsibility to actively participate in his or her learning and achievement. We believe educational excellence requires effective leadership and highly qualified staff applied with rigor, teamwork, and the responsible use of resources. And we believe that Lake Park Audubon schools are committed to providing students a safe and nurturing learning environment where all are encouraged to reach their potential. And our mission is to prepare students with the academic, social, and life skills to succeed in a changing world. And our vision is one of an innovative district of choice, inspiring students to excel in school and in life. So now if we look at our strategic plan, and we look at the very top part, the student achievement, you can see that I added the Minnesota Education Plan Due North. And as we look at some of just a few of these, we have to remember that nothing really would happen unless we have leadership. And leadership is having a compelling vision, which we have in the strategic plan, a comprehensive plan, a relentless implementation, which you've heard from our two principals and you would hear from our staff as well, and talented people working together. And we have a very quality, highly trained staff. If you look at some of the indicators on the due north, ensure academic standards that address the modern needs of the workforce are inclusive of ethnic studies and are reflective of students of color and Indigenous students. And you will hear from Raina Askin, because I think she'll go over the American Indian Education Plan when she is up. Expand early learning opportunities, expand social and emotional opportunities, out of school opportunities, and then reimagine the high school experience to increase career and college readiness. If we look at student support, we know that we have created a portrait of a graduate, and that in due north means expanding rigorous coursework options, expanding again career and technical education pathways. If we look at the heading of workforce, Lake Park Audubon will hire, support, retain highly qualified faculty and staff who will best serve the district. It has been a challenge in the past to keep and retain highly qualified staff, but there are ways that we're working to do that in this year with some relationship building. I know we do that in both schools, but we also have to provide really quality staff development and build the best teaching workforce, but the state is going to help us as well. We're not going to be able to do that all by ourselves because we know that across the nation there's a teacher shortage. We also know that some areas are short in the sciences and the math and the career and technical education. If we look at the finance, LPA would maintain a balanced budget. We have maintained a balanced budget, and we have developed a 3-year budget projection. And we have established what ifs. The finance committee just met and we looked at all the what ifs, and we looked at school funding to say, what about our fund balance? That's important, especially when we don't know if we will have the same number of students this following year as we did in the past. So it's important to have a really strong fund balance. If we look at communicating and marketing, here I think we've done a really great job of putting out information about our students in that Lakes Country Connection. We're on the radio, we are on Facebook, and we can always do better, and we have that as improving always, but we are out there talking about what's great happening at Lake Park Audubon. The academic program, if we look at that, is integrating multidisciplinary curriculum framework that is rigorous, relevant, and applies to the 21st century. So we have expanded course offerings, we have STEAM, we've included some project-based learning. When we look at the governor's plan, it is about expanding academic opportunities and mental health services. And then some other areas that the governor has included is focusing relationship building, necessary supports for students, and then providing educational experience that values student culture and identity. It is all about that rigorous coursework and engaging students. If we look at the governor's roadmap for transformational change in Minnesota, just a couple of points there. In order for children to be successful, we need to create standards that address the modern needs of our society, workforce, and democracy. We know that both the elementary school and the high school have been working on their standards-based teaching and learning, and they have been working on essential learner outcomes. We have also been working on a high-quality learning experience for our students that they will be successful in a diverse and global society. We know that's part of our strategic plan. And we do need to ensure that students find relevance and representation in the curriculum. And we're constantly looking at our curriculum and redesigning that so that it is relevant for our students. The last bulleted point that I think is really important is that we need to mobilize all of us, not just teachers and students, to nurture assets and dismantle barriers so every student and their family has all Minnesotans supporting their academic and personal growth. So it is really about all of us working together, and we can do that through listening, learning, and then leading, and that's very important. So what are we doing well? What are our successes? I talked about listening for barriers perhaps, but I think it's important that we celebrate how we are meeting the strategic plan. And I really brainstormed quite a long list, and there's plenty of more areas that we're doing very well. So our strategic plan is focused on students, student achievement, and innovation. It really matches the governor's due north very well. Our finance, we have a balanced budget and a solid fund balance that will help us all to make great decisions in the this upcoming year with COVID-19 decision-making and enrollment. We have had a great, amazing growth and long-term planning community committee focused on engaging students in learning models, and then also the quality, healthy learning environments that we need. We've been working on a middle level exploration. We have ongoing professional development. We've had it through Marzano. We've had social emotional learning with teachers. We have our professional learning communities in place. We have project-based learning, interdisciplinary teaching and learning. We have solid interventions in K through 6 in reading and math. We have a focus on reading comprehension. We have implemented a new math resource, as we have heard Mr. Barr talk about. Again, we have standards-based teaching and learning in our classroom, assessment plans in place, K-12, which we didn't have before. We have quality staff that probably should be number one on the list. Teacher mentors, as new teachers come to our school, we mentor them. Leadership teams, PBIS teams, staff development committees, social emotional strategies to meet the needs of all students, student engagement through CTE activities in the fine arts. We have excellent communication through various media, as I mentioned before. Our equity practices in place are important: one-to-one technology, summer school busing, ADSYS, Title I, World's Best Workforce. And we're working to implement more of an integrated multidisciplinary curriculum framework. And we're expanding, and we're working to expand even more rigorous coursework. So how can we continue this work? It's really by working all together, by, again, listening, learning, and leading, and creating a community of learners. And then you can say, well, how actually can we really accomplish all this? If you again look at that managing complex change, if you look across the top, we have the vision with our strategic plan, with the governor's due north. Skills, we are working on improving our teachers' strategies for implementing relevant instruction in the classroom with summer teacher learning academy, and also with our staff development that we have had this past year with Marzano and Clay Cook. Our incentives, we're trying to provide our teachers as much time as possible to implement the strategies. Resources could be time, resources could be additional money, it could be additional curriculum that we're working on, it could be going out and learning from other teachers. There's lots of online Zoom workshops now that teachers are learning from. Our action plan is like, what are we going to do today? What are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do by the end of the year? What are we going to do in the summer? So that action plan has to be really doable. And that creates change. And you can see again, if something is missing, then it might create either confusion, anxiety, we don't have the skills to do the teaching. It might mean gradual change, it might mean frustration, or it might mean a lot of false starts. So we're really working on getting all pieces in place to have the change happen for the students, to make exciting learning happening in the classroom and make students feel like they're a big part of what's happening in the classroom too, that they have voice and choice. And then the next thing that I wanted to just share with you is a rough draft of a middle school model exploration. It's just a rough draft because some people ask, well, what would it look like at Lake Park Audubon School District? So I had updated the board with a yellow kind of a handout, and we just started working on this last week. We have a committee that's going to meet just to say, is this something that looks like it might fit? Is this something that the board wants to see develop more? So if you look, I'm not going to go over all of it, but it just talks about the adolescent learner. And then it talks about why a middle school model benefits kids in grade 6, 7, 8. It's not just about grade 6, it's about grade 7 and 8 as well. And it talks about some of the activities that might be in place. We have our core classes, of course. It has exploratory examples they might choose for. Of course, we have the fine arts, which we're very proud of. Physical education, career exploration, digital literacy, Minnesota geography, life skills, skills for success. After school athletics, we have listed there clubs and organizations. There could be possibilities: art club, sign language, math club, Lego League, student council, yearbook, newspaper, robotics, student ambassadors, speech, student congress. interdisciplinary learning, that could also be with all the nature preserve that we have here or at the elementary, that students are developing that nature preserve, connecting to bigger relevant ideas, asking why and investigating, employing more project-based learning, which also will be a focus this summer. So I think it's teachers understanding what it could possibly look at. If you look at the back part of your handout, it's just a draft schedule, what it might look like. It could be that they have a homeroom or advisory, they have a block of language arts, a block of math, they have lunch, they have science and social studies, and then in the last 2 blocks of the day, it could be 2 electives, it could be some that are givens, like physical education and health, but it could be some others that are elective, like shop, or it could be art. So it just gives you an idea of what it could possibly, a schedule could look like. And then the floor plan, what could it look like at the secondary site? And if you look at this, it just shows the whole wing. If we added on to the high school, that we have a secondary site, add on that middle school part, you can see how that's just an idea, although that can be rearranged to meet more of a secluded area. It is secluded now, but maybe we say it could be even more secluded for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And then we have more answers on our website, and then we have a great quote at the end from one of our very finest, Andrew Becklin. As educators, it's important that we tailor our teaching to every student. The middle school years are a crucial time in a student's development. These students are going through physical and emotional changes that can affect their learning. Using a middle school pedagogy, we will be able to give these students the best possible experience for that crucial time in their lives. So a draft for you just to look at, and we'll be talking more about it. It's just a draft, and we'll be getting feedback from the committee at the high school, and then feedback from the board and feedback from the community as well. And then the next piece, I know Dave, you mentioned the ESSER funds that are coming up. So we have ESSER 2 funds that we'll be able to access, and ESSER 3 funds, which would be technology for mental health, COVID-related, special education, transportation. It could be for extra student assistance. It could be a teacher that helps for some students who might be needing more support. And then our enrollment is growing. We're up to 707 students from 701. So that's a good number. And then in your packet, school board, you do have a calendar draft to look at for the teachers and for the student or for parents. So if you look at that would be important. I know there's a part in our agenda that you can discuss that. It's very similar to this past year, and it has 171 teacher days on that, but it is a draft because we're talking about maybe high school having conferences at a different time than the elementary. So as I said, it's a draft, it's not a final. And we'd like feedback definitely from the board on what you're thinking and give ideas. So you can see both the parent and the teacher. And then lastly, as far as updating the board on the learning plan model, we had made a recommendation to stay with how it is through the month of April and then go full-time with all students in the month of May. And that's something on the agenda to discuss as well. And I think that what I want the board and the community know is that about 50% of the people say one thing and 50% of the people say other things. So, that's how it's been in this pandemic year. Not everybody agrees, nor will we. And we have always kept kids as number one in our decision making, or we would not have been in school the number of days we have been. Teachers at the elementary would not have given up their lunchtime. Teachers also would not have just pushed together and made a plan that they're not going to mix together. They're going to have small groups and their reading groups. They're going to have small groups at the lunch or outside, and at the high school as well. The teachers did a really great job of trying to do the best they can with 55 distance learners and giving up a lot of time. Even though some of the teaching is synchronous, there's a lot of asynchronous teaching going on as well. And we're continuing to see cases of COVID in our school. And I was just hearing about a couple of schools that were going to go distance after the Easter break because they thought kids are going to be mingling and so forth. And I know that it has changed to 3 feet, but the governor is still saying whenever feasible to have kids 6 feet away. I think we've been working very hard. We've been closing, kind of working on closing the gap too for those students who have been distance learning. And we're looking across the state. I think most schools are still less than, some 2 days, some 3 days, but most are going back to maybe 4 days. There are some with 5 days. They don't have the distance learners perhaps we have. They don't have, haven't had the kids in all year like we have. So I think that we're not trying to pit anybody against anyone. We're trying to just discuss it and say, these are some things that our staff and students have been working on, and now we come together to discuss it. What is best during the challenging time? It's still a pandemic. It's still difficult. We're still having, not everybody has their vaccine, and so we would like to still honor our students, our staff, and our families by keeping students in the same schedule. And I think that, everybody's just been doing a tremendous job, and parents have been very, very supportive of what we've been doing with their students. We have had many good reports about thank you for taking care of our students, thank you for having them in school, and some have even said thank you for giving us time to, let our students not be so stressed themselves, giving them a little time away from the classroom too, and taking some time to reflect. So I think those are the pieces I know you'll be discussing later, but I know we've been doing a really hard job. It's been quite stressful for parents. It's been stressful for staff. It's been stressful for kids too. We really care about the kids, and they've been always number one for us. Will always be, and that's why we're here. That's why we went into education, right? For the kids, to help them succeed and become leaders in our society and our world. And when I look around Lake Park Audubon, I am amazed at all the kids who are going to become great leaders. Not very far into the future, because time goes by really fast. Thank you.
Can I make a comment? I don't see the calendar on for discussion later.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
Okay.
could I just make a couple comments since I looked at it? I guess when you guys are looking at the calendar, one recommendation I would maybe consider is, we generally do have conferences here in the middle of February. I think from a high school standpoint, for classes that switch at semester, like you're only 3 weeks into the semester. So is it, are teachers really able to give an accurate feedback at that point in time? The second thing with those February dates is that winter sports are always really busy then. And I know Paula's first fall here, I think she was kind of a little bit alarmed at the number of teachers who were not at conferences because they're coaching. And so at least at the high school level, moving those conferences back till maybe March or something after when kind of playoffs are well advanced, or something, might be something to look into. Something that is probably not going to be very popular for me to say, but I'm the only one left from that set of negotiations. But we used to have a 182-day contract, and a few sessions back, we did go down to 181 days. And the discussion with the EA negotiators at that time was, we want to maintain 172 contact days. And they, it's not in writing anywhere, it's not in the contract, but it was a verbal agreement that they would accomplish what they needed to accomplish with those 172 days. I do really like Paula's idea of the summer learning stuff, where they can do a lot of their professional development in the summer. I think that's a great idea. That's something that's new. But just something to take into consideration that I think I talk about this every year is that, we had kind of agreed to 172 days, and it's been a while since we've had that many. So, and with the number of early outs we have, it kind of adds up to an entire another day off, it's 4 early outs. So it's just something to take into to think about.
I think the only thing, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think the other thing too, Scott, is we have, we might be done with winter sports, but then if you move it to March, we're starting the spring sports too, and you're also going to have coaches
Right, but kind of like right now, there's kind of a little break in between stuff. You know, because March, like, I don't think spring sports usually start till late March. And yeah, I mean, winter sports went super late this year, but that February time, I think, is kind of tough for a lot of sports. And I think it was last fall. I mean, I think conferences where it was like the play, dress rehearsal times, it was just really busy. So just to maybe take some of that into consideration.
Didn't girls softball start last week and baseball started today?
I'm not really even sure.
I think
The
that's,
next week.
but this year I know is a, I don't know.
Usually there's kind of a little break.
Just picking up.
Well, it depends on if they go on the tournaments or not too.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it's a tough call. I don't know if you're ever gonna find time, but, you know, we can look into it, but I just think we're gonna run into other complications too.
I threw that idea, Sky, at the committee, just as an idea where, I think we, just off the top of my head, I think it was October 12th, where right now we have a fall one, we have Tuesday, Thursday. And my thinking is like, that's after the first quarter is complete. Some parents would like to know prior, is my kid not doing well? So maybe do like one October 12th, and then do one after, kind of split them up a little bit versus having 2 1 week. Is that what your line of thinking is?
I didn't necessarily have anything specific. I mean, especially for fall. I just know winter it always, because you're only 3 weeks into your semester and sports are really busy at this time. But yeah, I mean, I do think the November ones do get a little late. I mean, if you're getting a surprise as a parent how things are going.
Just for feedback, I know Raina did look up for next year, the high school league. The February dates, I think, are right after the winter state tournaments and before spring, or that was the intention. I can't speak to the date.
And if I can, am I allowed to speak?
Go ahead.
I can provide the date. So the basketball playoffs are the week of the 21st of March and the 28th of March. So anything would need to be done prior to that so that we would complete the playoffs. In addition, the October dates, we looked at moving October. Actually, the high school teachers had requested having us looking at later in October so that they had a better understanding of how their kids were doing. Because in the fall, you're just getting to know kids and routines and everything else. The October dates couldn't be pushed much further back because volleyball and football playoffs are at the end of October. And so that's kind of, it forced the hand at least to avoid the last week or so in October and the last 2 weeks in March so that we didn't overlap with things. Just as context to that. And I looked at the Minnesota Executive School League. Our section dates aren't exactly on there yet. I even emailed our athletic director and Sherry, they don't have them, but I pulled the schedule for another district within Minnesota to ours this year to give a reference.
So you're saying next year's winter sports playoffs aren't until March? Our regular, I mean, usually basketball's regular season is done late February, 1st of March.
That is what.
I mean, this year it's all different. If you're looking at this year's dates.
I'm sorry, February, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, February, the end of February.
Yeah, the playoffs are usually first week or so.
Correct, I understand. So that was the reason for some of the playoffs.
Right.
Because we were trying to push them later in February and couldn't do so because of playoffs.
Right, but I mean, maybe looking into mid-March would be an all right idea.
And if the elementary would be in trimesters throughout, if we had different than high school, these conference days work well too, but if we were going to do different ones, our first thought was to line them more with the trimesters when report cards are going home in those conversations. So that would be December 3rd, so either the week before or after, and March 4th, so either the week before or after. Elementary conferences if we pursued different dates.
Okay, any other questions for Dr. Henry or input? Okay, with that, 6.7, Facilities and Transportation Director, Julie.
I don't have a lot more to add than the report I had already written and submitted to you, but I did want to let you know that all of the spring sports schedules for our bus drivers and their extra activities have been pretty much all scheduled already. We've got drivers for everything, which I'm just over the top excited because we've had a couple of our subs come back now they've gotten the shots for COVID and they feel comfortable coming back. So it's just made my life like 10,000 times easier. And also, when we had our inspections done this past winter from the state troopers, they indicated that our special needs bus has to be put to rest at the end of April. So we are looking at needing to purchase another vehicle. But Amanda Skansen has informed us that we have funds already available for that. That was actually available for last year, but we didn't use it. So we're looking at getting a used vehicle so that we can get away from some of the extra sales tax and everything, and one with low mileage. So I'm kind of scouting out some of the local dealerships and having them look for me to find a vehicle that we would be able to purchase at a pretty reasonable price. So we're looking at low mileage and maybe a year-old vehicle. And as far as transportation, I have to really compliment that is a good crew out there that works well together. They're quite a tight-knit team, and they're willing to fill in for each other whenever I ask. So I'm very proud of them, and I think we all should be. They've worked hard to keep the buses safe for the children this school year. Also with the COVID, they've been very dutiful about having them slips turned in to them to make sure the kids are safe to ride the bus. And as far as facilities, I wrote quite a bit on facilities in your report, but I'm just going to give you an update on the boiler system. They came to replace the main boards that had went kaput during the bad weather, and the drum panel was ordered, so that's on a 2-week delay to get that completely done. We do have 2 boilers at this time that are running up to top speed right now, so we're not worried about losing heat any longer at this point. Let's see here. I did mention also that we had purchased some fountain tops to go over our original fountain stands we have, so that we can eliminate the ones that we're renting right now. Our rental fees is running us $309 a month to rent these little coolers that we got sitting around the school. Those have done its purpose, but they're really a mess. The kids, there's no drain in them. So the kids, if they overflow their cup, it goes all over the floor and it's quite a mess. Well, anyway, we will be able to purchase more of these for the school building through the COVID money. That will fall underneath that. And we already have 2 installed over in Audubon, and we're looking to install 2 more over there. And we have enough to do 3 here, and we're looking to install, I think, 3 more here besides. So they seem to be enjoyed by the kids. The kids seem pretty excited that they have them. And I think the teachers as well are excited because they're not having to parade their kids out all the way to the other end of the building, and it takes time to do that.
It's a little thing. Adam was a hero the day that he installed one. I think he
Yeah.
had over like 500 water bottles filled up or something. It overheated.
Yes, yeah. So it is kind of proved to us that it's going to be beneficial for all of us. Let's see, I guess one of the things I'm going to focus on this week is getting our batting cage up, because we have a game coming on Friday. And the batting cage that we have is a replacement from when it went down in the winds. So I've never put one of these up before, so it should be interesting to see how swift I can move and get that up. But we're hoping to do that on Wednesday if we don't have a foot of snow to have to work through. But other than that, I think that's about it, unless you have any questions.
Madam Chair.
Yep.
See, Julie, what's the criteria for putting a bus or vehicle to rest? I used to know that, but it's not just mileage, is it?
No, it isn't. It isn't just mileage, but they go through the whole vehicle as far as if it's up to code with all the standards and stuff that's going to be required by the state. And after so many years of age, they have to be put to rest.
So it's
So
usually.
years, mileage, and then condition of vehicle. And if it's got all the bells and whistles that it's needed in order to pass next year's inspection. But they told us the end of April would be the last that we could drive that one, which we will get by with it for the end of this year. We won't be able to use it, but we'll get by with another vehicle if we maybe split up some students in it. But ideally, we'd like to get this purchased and be on top of it for the next school year.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question too? So I do remember Kent talking about the need for an accessible bus. Maybe you remember more about this, Marv, but so we didn't buy one recently.
No, we haven't. This one here has got over 200,000 miles on it. And this was bought for special ed. It was paid through special ed funds, and it has seen its better days.
Is that the way we're thinking about purchasing through special ed funds on this?
The funds that Amanda said was special ed, so it would be used for special ed. And I'm not exactly sure the money amount. It was like, I wanted to say 68,000 or something like that, that we had in 90,000.
Medical assistance funds to
Yeah.
use to purchase.
In
But
general,
whatever monies that we don't use on the vehicle, it would be nice to be able to purchase the new updated car seats and stuff too, because some of them are on their last year of being used too. So we want to make sure that we are following the protocol of the government, make sure we have the right ones for our kids too.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, do you want to talk about the service for doing reports? You want to talk about that you're seeking?
The what now?
You want to talk about that service that you're seeking about doing annual reports and managing the bus routes?
Oh, yes. Actually, well, I'm not looking out at any different service for it. What I want to do by the end of the school year here is get our drivers together. And in my previous schools I've worked in, we get the drivers together and we map out the whole routes together, because the way I'm looking at it, we've got some drivers that are only picking up possibly 30 some kids. We've got others that are picking up 70 kids. But we also have to keep track of the miles that are going in this whole loop too. But what I'm seeing now as the years progressed and I'm starting to know the routes a little better, there's some of these routes that have hardly any children on. They could cut off about 10 kids off of these heavy routes and wouldn't be that many more miles added. It's just that the way we've had it in the past, I think we were in designated route areas to certain zones, certain drivers, and I would like to see us all get together and try to simplify this and make it a little more even. And I think the best way to do it, the drivers know the routes. And I mean, I could go and spend days looking at all the routes individually, but I think we put them together, we put the district map up, that they will be able to pinpoint, hey, yeah, that would make sense for me to pick them children up versus this one here going way out of the way to get them. You know, I think there's room for improvement. I'm not saying Kent didn't have it right, because I'm sure he did, but I'm just looking at it as there's probably some space here that we could even out our routes a little more. Because there's some of our drivers that are only out, they'll leave the school at 3:30 and 10 after they're in. And I've got other routes that aren't getting in until 10 after 5. So to me, they're all getting paid the same. They should be probably getting more evenly routed out. So that's what I'm looking for.
Go ahead, Mike.
I thought we bought a program for that.
We do have a program, and that is what we're using.
Okay.
But that program doesn't tell you which route to put the child. What it does is you find the child on the route,
And then you look which bus is going by that area and you plug it into that route. Then it'll tell you where to pick this child up. But we have some places going right down highway number 11. We got 3 buses going down that number 11. And maybe we only need 2 going that direction and make it spread that other one going down another direction. So it's just kind of, maybe I can't fix it, but what I'm thinking is, it doesn't hurt to investigate it a little bit and see if we can't even out the roads. I think we'll have a little bit more happier campers. I honestly think there's some of them that they don't say much about it, but I think they may feel like, wow, I don't get in until 10 after 5, and the other ones, they're already gone for the day. And, you know, to me, I like to see a little more evenness.
So is that, are you speaking of a normal year, or some of that maybe COVID induced too?
You know, there could be a little bit of it, COVID, but I've been also keeping track of, because on our routes, we show that they're on that route, but they're not active. So it's still counting those kids on their routes. So it really, to me, what I can see, it just needs to be sat down, and people that drive those roads every day, how can we do some shortcuts here?
Any other questions? Thank you, Julie.
Yes.
6.8 technology, John? Okay. Any questions, John? Thank you. 6.9 food service director Cheryl Bradbury.
Yes, so the beginning of March, USDA has extended a few different waivers, so that's great for meal accessibility and also for the free meals through September 30th. There has been a hint and somewhat discussion that this could go for the whole upcoming school year, so that would be wonderful, but nothing is confirmed. But I do see, you know, that could be a possibility, and that would be wonderful for all of our students, our families, in our community. That would be great. Currently, we're in the means of planning for the summer. Things. So I want to do what's best to fill the needs of our community and our students, and just make it streamlined so it works well for our school and what our needs are for our kids, and not fall into, well, we have this, we have the summer foods, and just, I want to do it smart. And so I'm just relying on a few different groups as well as staff, but keeping it quiet as far as what exactly we're going to plan to do, because I want input as well. But I don't want to make any rash decisions, but I know that's right around the corner. So we'll get that going, and maybe a 4-day handout for meal distribution, and talking to others and Mr. Barr. I just don't know that it's feasible to have community in and students in. We will have them in the school, like as far as eating in the school. So there's a lot of things that we have to work out, little details. We hope to, but in time. So we're working on that. So, and a lot of excitement going on. Obviously, at the elementary, that's a bustling place. March is such a busy month with Dr. Seuss, and then the Winter Fun Day. That was, I think, in February, if I'm right, or maybe it was in March. They kind of all go together, so excuse me. A lot of fun things. So we try to offer certain meals too, so it's fun for the students as well. And let's see, and this week, wrapping up the buying for commodities. So that's a little more clear for me this time, where last year I walked into that and I had one of the head cooks help me with that. And it was like the blind leading the blind, but we made it through, and we reached out to support. I've got a lot of support now, so I'm feeling good about that. But yeah, and I think high school's doing good. Everyone, staff is all doing well. And obviously there's some minor issues, but you know what? They're not what we base our days on. So we just try to get over that and see what we can do better. But yeah, that's about it for now.
And any questions for Cheryl? Okay, thank you. 6.10 assessment data and grant coordinator Raina.
I have to apologize in advance. I slightly have to make up for my brief presentations before. I won't make this super long, but it does have a little bit more content. And I'm covering two different things. Thank you. So that's just to kind of give that in advance. Thanks, John. By the way, John and Cheryl and Julie, all of the time are adjusting on so many things. I appreciate them so much. You wouldn't know how many things they adjust for. And so, the poor ladies, I was harassing them as they came in today too. Okay, so the first order of business I want to talk about is our American Indian update. There's a lot going on from now, probably till the end of the school year as well. So I met with the APAC committee in addition to our administration. And our APAC committee is our American Indian Parent Advisory Committee. So the state of Minnesota requires a district, whether or not they're receiving any additional funding, to have an APAC committee. And the intention of that APAC committee is to help guarantee and make sure that the district is meeting the needs of American Indian students the best they can. It's actually connected to the state statute, and I have that statute in front of me. But the main points of what it's working to do is it's to make sure that we're preparing all of our American Indian students for post-secondary education. We're supporting them academically. We're working really diligently to make the curriculum relevant to the needs of the student in addition to the cultural heritage of the students. Working to provide positive reinforcement for their self-image, as well as an intercultural awareness within our entire school district, our parents, our staff, our students. And then finally, when there is additional aid available to supplement and not supplant state and federal education and curriculum programs. And that's kind of the trickiest piece. I'm honestly continually asking the American Indian Education Department, the state of Minnesota, what is this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? You know, I can get another email back today. Nope, not this, this, or this. Come on. So that idea of supplanting is we need to make sure that we're providing an equal education for every single one of our students. And so what we're providing for American Indian students, we should be providing for every other student. But what can we do in addition that maybe is only unique to those students? And so that is kind of the intention of that. So we had, in addition to the administration that was there, there were 4 additional parents there in addition to myself. We reviewed the goals that we had set as well as the expenditures that we had set. We received additional aid based on the number of students that are enrolled in the district as identifying as American Indian in part or in whole. I am working with our building secretaries to make sure that our incoming forms are accurate, as actually our counts are off by a few dozen, like maybe 10, 20 different students, and that has a large impact on the actual number of students that we're getting paid for. But again, that aid is specifically to be used for additional programming, just to not be confused with something else. And so in looking at those things, we've got 5 main goal areas that I talked about this fall. Again, those goal areas are making sure all children are ready for school. That's a lot of that ECFE piece. Making sure that all of our American Indian children receive grade level literacy by 3rd grade. Working on closing achievement gaps of American Indian students, and we're looking largely at our growth percentiles and our dual credit and AP credit classes at the high school. Our career and college readiness pieces, and then are helping our American Indian students graduate from high school. And we're trying to keep track of that in addition to basic graduation rates through on-track course completion. What percentage of American Indian students are on track for course completion compared to our general population. And so there's a lot of pieces that go into that in addition to the monies that we've set aside from these additional monies from the state and how we were hoping to use them. Some of the areas have not been as utilized as we had hoped because of COVID, because of some distance learning, because of any number of things. It's just hard to tell. And the families that participated in that meeting in October, as well as the district administration and myself, collaboratively, we came up with that plan. And so I came back to them and said, hey, we're using some of these items, but we're not using all of them. Let's adjust so we can use this additional funding well to meet the needs of these kids. And so some of the things that we came up with include our sixth graders are not able to go to the powwow this year, and that's normally a way that we would encourage some of those pieces. And so we're trying to see if we can stream it. It's a religious ceremony, so we may not be able to, but I'm working with Cheryl in order to provide at least a culturally appropriate meal that day, and we may do a replacement type of a activity that we can do, et cetera, et cetera. Working with transportation and adding some transportation offerings. We offer transportation and tutoring and some things like that to families this fall through email correspondence. It may be necessary to do a variety of ways to communicate with all of those American Indian families. There's about 80 some students that we have, about 12% of our population identifies as American Indian. And so contacting them one by one might be challenging, but if that's what's needed, that may be what we have to do. But I am working on another email push right now to try to help students and families at the high school level take advantage of transportation to Wednesday school, to after school activities, to other curricular activities, in addition to that was also offered this fall and is still offered this year for our students to attend targeted and so forth. So there's just a lot of things that we're trying to adjust. We are looking to do a community event in June, to just a cultural community event and getting some ideas there. So if anybody wants to join and participate, I would love that. Because I'm only one brain and just more people are creative than I am. So that's kind of the direction that we're going. And then we started to do some ideas and some lists for this next year. We'll meet back again late this summer to continue to work, hopefully even before then, on some of these plans. And so that's kind of where you see the upcoming events and what we have going on there. In May, I'll be sending out another set of family packs, hopefully helping support families in their engagement with each other and reading and crafting and some of those things for this summer. And we'll have another APAC meeting, like I said, again this fall. Before you, I was hoping that we would be able to have a board approval of our vote of concurrence. When we met March 9th, I, at that meeting, should have asked everybody in that meeting to have that vote of concurrence. Slipped my mind with all the other things that we were doing, and so then I did it via email. I'm still waiting for an official response from a couple of those members, and so have to have that vote from all members prior to bringing that to the board. And so most likely, I should have that by the next board meeting. I have been emailing in communication, but I'm still waiting for that official vote. And so what that vote of concurrence is saying is that the families that were a part of that meeting are in agreement or not in agreement that the district is doing what it can do to meet those areas of intention that I had listed earlier. And so when that comes before the board, it's up to the board to say, yep, we agree with what what is being done on behalf of American Indian students and what the APAC is saying. Or if there was a vote of non-concurrence, then it's the board working together to try to meet the needs and figure out where we can continue to improve. There's always room for improvement anyway, but that's the intention of that. So just know when that comes about at the next board meeting, what that's about and the intention behind it. Before I move on, is there any questions about this piece here? Fabulous. And so then looking at the next part and kind of, this has been touched on already quite a bit, both by Mr. Barr and Mr. Mario, but just looking at those continuous tools, and unfortunately I feel like it's some of those things where unless you're in the education world, some of the necessity and meaning behind them, I think just gets lost in the shuffle. And so some of the ways that we as a district are able to continuously respond to the needs of our students comes from these really, really integral things. Very, very important parts, and they seem like, I just don't know if the importance of them is known necessarily. And so the first one of those things is curriculum. Curriculum isn't a system, but it's really an essential building block. And what that does is it's the intention of providing that support and the direction for the students and for the teachers. It gives that learning sequence K-12, and that learning sequence is supposed to help be aligned. Not any curriculum is 100% aligned, just so we're all frankly aware of that. They're not created for each individual state. They're created by a publisher, and they're trying to make the whole United States happy at the same time. So we have to take that curriculum as a really good building block start and then work from there to make sure we're meeting the additional state standards. The intention of the curriculum also is we want to keep content engaging. we have curriculum in our buildings that are 20 years old. A lot has happened in the last 20 years. And so it's really important to make that updated. Quite honestly, teachers have kind of abandoned some of that curriculum and are doing a lot of those things on their own. Well, then we lose that consistency and that continuity where they're instructing, and they are instructing with the standards, but we want to make sure that's to the correct rigor. And that's where a lot of our PLC work also goes. In addition, that curriculum provides consistent tier 1 instruction. And again, that tier 1 piece is what every student in our district is afforded and offered every single day. We want to make sure that we're not leaving the needs of any student out. And so it's a really important component of making sure that we're giving students what they need, right? And that is in response to data. And so even just looking at the data, when you look on the right-hand side, you're like, okay, great, a curriculum review, fantastic. Actually, the curriculum review is in direct response, and the curriculum and adoption is in direct response to the data trends that we see. So for example, we saw some really good growth in our students' math, K3 especially, and then we saw that plateau off. Our curriculum wasn't meeting the needs of our average to low average learners, and we needed something that met those needs better. And so that was a large part of our curriculum review cycle. When we look at our English language arts review cycle that we've been working on right now and are currently a part of, and Mr. Barr talked about that. I've been talking to Mr. Barr, poor guy, since he came, about just some foundational areas of phonemic awareness that our students are continuing to lag in as they move into first grade. We haven't had a curriculum addressing phonemic awareness. And so until this year, until I said, hey, can we get this? Hey, can we get this? Hey, can, and so that's really a response to data, is how we move with curriculum. And so the curriculum that we're looking at right now, we have a need for phonics and phonemic awareness instruction at that primary level to a large degree, and we have a need at our upper level, at our upper elementary level, when we see students plateau at that upper elementary level and they're fluent readers, they're plateauing because their vocabulary is weak, and their vocabulary is weak for a variety of reasons. We can't necessarily help demographically what knowledge they're coming in with or what they're exposed to at home. And so we need to make sure we have a curriculum rich in that, as well as integrating the writing and the spelling components that put all together. And that's what research tells us is writing goes into helping develop a stronger reader, stronger in curriculum comprehension and so forth. And so that's a component that I think is often overlooked. To be determined as far as that curriculum review cycle, social, science, some of those electives. I know at the high school, some of those elective texts have been updated. I don't know the exact cycle of those and where they're at, but I know that it's been a little bit more teacher driven. And so a little bit maybe less for a content area. And that's, if you're one shop teacher, then you get to do that, right? But when you're a science department, that's where some of the work that Mr. Meyer has talked about with their PLC review of science is looking into that as well. Another major component is we go into systems. And so the systems talks about these consistent components that are established that should be a direct reflection on our district goals. And so that's where Dr. Henry was saying, okay, what's our mission? What are our values? What are our goals? What do you want us as a district and as the buildings to have as priorities, right? And that's what we spend time working on in our PLCs, working on with our professional development, and working on with our master schedule and our tiered supports. And so I've got, if you want me to send you a whole bunch of great resources for this, I certainly can. But one of the references that I used to get this information from was from EdWeek. And so if you look at the right-hand side, they list 9 common factors of successful schools. The things that I highlighted in yellow there have to do with systems. And so 7 of those 9 things are directly tied back to making sure we have effective systems in place. And so when Mr. Barr and Mr. Meyer are working so hard on schedules, it's a critical component and should be a direct reflection of what's important in our district. And so PLCs, I believe you know about them and what they are, so I'm just going to fly through that pretty quick. But the intention of that PLC time that we continue to talk about is it's shared, focused collaboration time. It's the time when teachers can work together on a common goal and as direct response to how students are doing. And so we are continuously looking at, okay, what do we want all students to know? So that's kind of those essential questions. What's on the report cards, for example, at the elementary level? And, okay, how do we know the kids learned it? So we're saying this is really important for a third grader to know. How do we know they learned it? All right, what do we do if they don't learn it? How are we going to respond? Is it a small group? Is it a large group? Is it because we don't have the right instructional pieces like curriculum in place? And what are we going to do to extend that learning for those students who have already mastered it? And so if you look on the right-hand side, those are some of the things that have been focused on this year at both an elementary and a high school level. Those are some really big things that we've been pushing forward with, even in a COVID year. There are districts that did not hold their PLCs this year because they felt like it was too much to ask. And we really felt as teachers like we needed to move forward with achieving and continuing to respond to what our students need and the goals that we set in place. Another piece of those systems is that professional development. This year, as district-wide, we had Clay Cook and EMR training, we had Marzano training, and I know that our administration was really careful not to put too much on our plate, and yet also have us move forward with some of those tier 1 pieces. Again, those are things that we are doing for every one of our kids. How are we creating a safe and caring environment? What are we doing to try to make sure that our students are engaged in every classroom that they're in all day long, right? That's that tier 1 piece. Some of the upcoming professional development that we already have slated is we have some individual stuff that was just referenced already. So some of the letters, which is addressing the phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, language, comprehension, vocabulary needs, project-based learning, guided reading. And then there's also some individual things, some tier 3 things and others that come up that Mr. Barr is aware of, Mr. Meyer is aware of. It's just individuals sometimes need additional training that 10 teachers, 12 teachers don't need. We're also doing district training and working towards that, already making plans for the fall. So some of those social emotional needs, again, responding to the needs of our students. We want them to be engaged in school. But just like in your lives, if you have things going on in your life that are unresolved, it's really hard to focus on your job. And that's the same for our students. We need to make them feel safe. We need to make sure they have people to talk to. We need to make sure they have relations with their teachers. And if they don't have those things, they can't learn. And so it's putting those pieces into place. And then there is always PD that is required every single year because of state requirements. And actually Lori Wixom is an expert on that if you want to hear about all of it. But things such as ELL stuff, there's cultural competency, there's a lot of other things that are required by the state of teachers. I do have 2 little soapboxes on this. An unfortunate reality, one, and I'm working on it, so if you have connections to the state, let me know. But the letters training, for example, I have polled informally over 20 teachers in our building about the education that they've received at our Minnesota and North Dakota colleges. Only 1 teacher in our building, and that's our speech language pathologist, has been given formal instruction, including master's instruction or beyond, on how to teach kids how to read. And I want you to think about that. Okay. Our state does not have classes in college requirements for teachers to provide them the foundations of phonemic awareness, teaching phonics, teaching fluency. They teach you how to do a running record and run really great book groups. But beyond that, for teaching teachers how to teach kids how to read, we are lacking in the state of Minnesota and North Dakota in that. And there are districts, there are states far beyond us. And so sometimes we have to give PD for stuff that our teachers haven't been given of no fault of their own. And that's a particular case here. There are states in the United States that are actually not only requiring it, but paying for every teacher in their state to get those things done because it is so important. So kind of something to keep in mind there. The other little soapbox, I'm going to turn the minutes on that too, and I'm almost done, I promise. The other one too is the teacher prep programs. That classroom management, and that kind of goes back to those social emotional needs. I think if you ever hear about where especially new teachers are struggling, or teachers who are maybe just not cut out to be teachers, it's not their number 1 skill set of professions, is classroom management. And very, very little time is provided to that. when you are in college. And so that's something that we can continue to keep in mind and really help and develop in the teachers. Another key thing that is super important too is you will get more bang for your buck on any professional development where it's followed up consistently throughout the year and or with coaching. And so if we want to see things done well, we have to keep coming back to it in our staff meetings and in more meetings throughout the year so that it's not just to check the box and it's done. And it's the same for in the jobs that you're in. If you want to become better at something, you can't go to a seminar one time and check it off. You have to keep coming back to it. And so those are just really important things to be aware of. Finally, that tiered supports and scheduling, that is a really critical component to that response. And so for example, Mr. Barr, being the tackler of all things that he is, second year in said, man, we need to really readjust our entire WIN schedule. And he did. And we wanted to add a math intervention period because our kids need it. But it took hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, right, Mr. Barr, of recreating the schedule to make sure that kids were able to get a math intervention and a reading intervention because it matters. And to do the same thing to make sure that your grade level teachers get a common prep. So when they don't have enough time to get the things done to work together, they can help and work on that and do that during their prep time. And so that scheduling is really important. I know the same thing happened last year with that Raider rally block. The same thing is happening right now with Mr. Meyer and trying to restructure what our schedule looks like at elementary level. And so the more tools that we can provide them helps, but also those are a direct reflection of the goals of the district. What does the data tell us? What do our kids need? What is our community telling us? Hey, we need more of this kind of class for our high schoolers. Hey, how do we reschedule? How do we restructure? And so those are just really, really important components. And I promise I'm done. But besides the APAC concurrency vote, which I could honestly have done via email, it'll be brought to a board meeting in April here, but is not necessary for me to be present. If there is nothing else that you have as a request from me, my intention is to come before you again in May to talk about data with our benchmarking. We'll have some more information about what the growth looks like for our district this year, as well as what those comparison to trends of previous years look like as well. So any questions for me on the many things I've said? I'm sorry it was a little longer. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you so much.
Representatives, any non-certified staff representatives? Certified? Teachers reports? On. Approval of the consent agenda, which includes 7.1, consideration approved payment of Independent School District 2889 bills, claims, and the district's financial report. 7.2, consider approval of the minutes from February 11th, February 17th, and February 22nd. 7.3, consider approval for the treasurer's report. 7.4, resignation/retirements. Lindsay Ramberg, elementary special education teacher, effective end of the 2021 school year. Jennifer Wagner, elementary school 5th grade teacher, effective June 2nd, 2021. And Yang Song, high school Chinese teacher, effective May 20th, 2021. And then permission to hire junior high track coach, Lake Park Audubon High School, Cody Stevenson, step 1. Special education teacher, Lake Park Audubon Elementary School, Taylor Reichel, I hope, step 2, lane 1. And 7.6, permission to hire or permission to post WIN teacher, ACES title, Lake Park Audubon Elementary School 21-22 school year. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion by Marv, second by Jason. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I was just wondering for Jen Wagner's position, not posting that, is that going to be in-house then? In-house? I'm sorry.
Yep, it looks like we'll cover that one internally with the reassignment.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 8.0 recognitions. I'd just like to say thank you on behalf of the board for all the extra hard work that being done this year by everyone.
One quick thing, I wanted to ditto what you just said exactly, but I'm gonna pick on Art, but last week or the week before, we had a board meeting that went till about 8:30 up in the library. And I helped Paula carry some stuff down to the front office, and Mr. Meyer was in his office at 8:30 that night. So I know he doesn't want to pick on him 100%, but I just want to say to our entire staff, everybody, and hopefully the people that are here tonight will communicate down to your people and your coworkers. But terrible year as far as COVID, and it's unbelievable the work you've done and what you've accomplished. So I know it's been said before, it's only my 3rd month, so I wanted to give you my 2 cents. So thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, 9.0 old business. We have a discussion on 9.1 learning plan flex days. How do we want to do this?
Well, I think it's a discussion that the board needs to have, and I think it's just worthy to know that some boards vote, some boards don't. So I think it's what you feel most comfortable with. Just for the public, not every board votes on this because the administration does go to a regional support team for feedback, and we get advice, and we talk with a lot of different people, a lot of superintendents around the area, a lot of principals. And so I guess we're recommending that we just stay in this model till the end of April, and then maybe we all come back, considering some schools are kind of pulling back over Easter break afterwards, but we do still have kids out with COVID. But I think it's having a discussion, whatever you decide, we're going to go with, because we do care about the kids and we want the best for kids. And what is that? We don't really know for sure. Kind of some people think one way and some people think another. So it's, if we just discuss it, we'll go ahead and do whatever the board recommends.
Are there any thoughts on behalf of the board?
Make a motion, we continue as is until the end of April, like advised by our administration.
I'll second your motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to continue the schedule as is through the end of April. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
The motion does carry. We have 1%. 10.0 new business. 10.1 letter from Andrew Eklund. That was in your board packet. Discussion on that. Dr. Hen, would you like to give a background on that, or?
Yes, I could.
Do you want a motion?
I don't, since it's a discussion item, I guess if we want to take a motion, we can, but I'm not 100% sure doing that right, so.
Well, Andrew Eklund came to me and said he wanted to honor Mr. Liversage in some way. And I said, well, maybe it's through Dollars for Scholars, or he's been here a long time. Mr. Liversage was the only band teacher that's been at this school. And so a lot of kids have a lot of respect for all of our teachers, but in particular, when you have a teacher that's been here a really long time, he wondered if there's something special we can do to honor Mr. Liversage. So I guess that's up for discussion with the board. And we did talk about, there are a lot of teachers who will retire. What would we do ongoing for other teachers who retire? So, we can't name like a classroom after a teacher necessarily, because we have a lot of great teachers that will retire. But what is it that we could do? Could we have a scholarship in place, or maybe and start something like that? So I think it's just really up for discussion. What would be something that we could do?
Well,
Go ahead, Marcia. Go ahead.
he did not get a retirement party. And even through the summer, through community ed, some people were talking about how we couldn't. And then before I read this letter, I was thinking when Andrew has his last concert in Route 12, I thought, wow, would that be appropriate to call in Mr. Liversidge and dedicate that to him, and maybe something else. I think it's a great idea. It's a great idea.
Something I thought about too, I mean, when he put the classroom in his letter, I'm like, the band room is back there because it's noisy and, so it's kind of away from things where, maybe you look at, one of the concerts being, like what you're saying. And that maybe has kind of more of a little bit of a community reach to it, because you'll have more community members, grandparents, whatever, in here for a concert than we would at a classroom. And I think it could be similar to how Katie O'Connell, she had the Lori Brooks science fair. And it's.
Any other discussion?
I like that idea, and that's maybe something that could even be ongoing. I mean,
Right, that's kind of what I meant.
Yeah, we have the Terry taking wrestling.
right,
So,
and he was a big
have
impact.
concert.
He was a big impact on our.
I mean, something else to think about is Diane's probably been the only choir teacher. I mean, like Paula said, there are some teachers with some longevity that are
It
coming
gets to be
through.
hard when you start thinking of rooms, not that it's not deserved, it's just how do you, you can't sustain that forever.
Right.
Well, we need to-
Just, I guess, not putting Mr. Liversidge aside and taking it one step more, and maybe we have this, but do we have like a wall of fame or a plaque of fame where we can, sporting events they put every year, you won the district tournament or whatever, but do we have a place in the school where we have a plaque where we can put a name and the years of each school or each teacher that retired out of LPA? I know that doesn't solve this problem, but I'm thinking more on a big picture item to honor everyone that retired out of the school. Someplace in a commons area where, you're walking around, you see the athletic trophies, but these teachers that retire are athletes too, in my opinion. So is that something worth looking into on a bigger picture item?
I think another thing we need to look at, back to Mr. Liversidge, and this is establish some kind of guidelines. What's the criteria? Otherwise, we're gonna have 15 band concerts and we won't have enough dates in the calendar that we can do something to honor everyone. Not, if that's what we can do, that's what we do, but we should have some type of criteria so that everyone understands this is kind of how we measure naming an event after a teacher or something along that lines, just so it's controllable.
And some of you already know this, but they have the Ellen Pesha Award, Music Award. Every year, it's just a little plaque. It's not, but he was a wonderful band teacher, probably 40 years ago, but he died in a motorcycle accident. They have another one. What's that name down there? They have a few of them. I think that would be an idea too. Doesn't have to be expensive, but just to remember that person.
So do you need an action from us, or do you just need a general, we're in support of something? If you want to bring that back, and there's some ideas, everything from concert naming to, plaque highlighting teacher retirements, to maybe just go back and explore a little bit more. It's a great idea. Okay, moving on to 10.2. Approve a maternity leave of up to 9 weeks beginning in August to end in October 18th. 2021, do I have a motion?
So motion.
Second?
Second.
Second by Marge. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 10.3, approve invoice from GNR Controls for repairs, parts and labor of $7,338.06. Do I have a motion?
Motion to pay
Motion by Jason, second.
I'll second.
Second by Marv. Any discussion?
Is that the order to?
We discussed this in the finance meeting. When you first look at it, it appears to be sticker shock, but there was a lot of time involved with the panel that had to be ordered for it. So it's all within reason.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 10.4, approve federal mileage rate change from 57.5 cents to 56 cents effective January 1, 2021. Motion went down, huh?
Save money. So moved.
Barb, second.
Second.
Second by Jason. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 10.5, approve extension of COVID leave through June 30th of 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Marv. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Marge. Any discussion?
Can I ask a question? Is there gonna be like kind of guidelines for this? Like, I'm assuming vaccinated staff probably are not eligible, or?
Well, a lot of it is confidential, so part of it is, when we look at maybe how many people would have absolutely need it, it wouldn't be that many yet.
It would be nice if they could last a couple weeks off of work if they don't have to. Yeah, if you still have your days.
Yeah, and we can ask, just ask.
It has to be related. So the most common example lately has been people have got sick from their second vaccine and missed a day. But other than that, the only ones I can think of is if we quarantine someone, and maybe one example of they had one of their kids is in daycare and got quarantined. But for the most part, it's been we're quarantining them. So, it's a result of being in our workplace.
And probably it would not be very many people. It might be one or two, but we feel that if some people had that advantage of being able to say COVID days, then right through the end of the year, because someone still could be quarantined and not able to come to work yet.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 10.6, approve Lake Park Audubon's Principals Association contract for 2020 through 2022. Motion.
So moved.
Motion by Marge. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Jason. Any discussion?
Guess I should ask, do the principals approve of the principal's contract?
No agreement.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 10.7, set date for April school board work session, possibly April 13th. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Jason. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Marge. So board, this was the question I asked Lee in there, is how long that April 13th meeting would take, because there was not a work session scheduled at the last work session meeting. And just to try to stay focused on whether or not we're going to be going for a referendum vote, we kind of committed to a monthly work session. So we just wanted to throw it out there to the board. Do you want to try to, and then just looking at all the meeting dates for April, the thought was, could we combine it, but also not wanting to overload schedules. So I guess it's just open for, do we want to try to continue? Number one, do we want to do that April 13th date after the MSBA special meeting?
How long did he say that meeting?
He said, I've heard anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half from him. So I think it kind of depends on how much we discuss.
The MSB thing is a must though.
Yes, that is happening. Any thoughts? We have a motion and a second to hold it that night. Do we want to go for a vote if there's no other?
Would you be looking at from like the start time of 6:30 then?
for an hour and a half, I suppose, to 2 hours. That's what they've been running, right? Okay, I guess I'll take it to a vote. All those in favor? Say aye.
Can you repeat it?
So it'd be April 13th, following the MSBA meeting. So
So we would do the MSBA
that's at
And,
5, right?
and a work session, and then both.
Do you feel that you have enough items for a work session?
There's nothing saying we couldn't have a short work session. It's just really to stay in. Otherwise, 2 months will pass without kind of discussing all those items before us.
I think we should make a motion to hold it, try to hold it to an hour. Does that make sense?
Okay, I think we have to vote on this one then, so we would not pass this one. So all those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Aye.
You want to do a new motion then, Mark?
No, but I will. I make a motion to have a work session after the MSBA meeting and hold that session to a maximum of an hour.
Have a second?
Second.
Second by Marge. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. So try to keep it to an hour. 10.8, approve Cultivate 21 contract for professional development. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Mark. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Marv. Any discussion?
Yeah, oops,
Go ahead.
Of course, two are gonna get a fight for it.
Right?
I was just wondering, is this a renewal every year of the contract? No.
Good question, Marge. No, it is not. It's a new contract for summer staff development for K-12 teachers.
I have a
So
question.
they'll have 3 days of training in the summer, and then they'll be coached in the during the school year. So it's a brand new contract.
So, okay, so, and this will continue through the year then, you're saying, or just that workshop?
Through the school year, because they'll have the training in the summer, the 3 days in the summer, the training. And then during the year, they'll be implementing and they'll be coached. Then the trainer will come in and coach the teachers in K-12. Whoever signed up for the course in the summer will get that coaching in the school year.
Was there a contract last year? Yes. I don't remember.
There was one that was completed last year.
Last year, right, okay.
And that was a 2-year contract, but it.
And that was 2
last year.
years, all right, so now it's
This is a brand new one.
Like, do you know how many people you have signed up? Is there kind of a minimum number of teachers you want to have? Because it's like $11,000, isn't it? So is there a minimum number that we want to have?
We did do a survey. We did have 12 people interested, so we're hoping those same 12, we'll take it. Otherwise, we'll go back and talk with the trainer and make an adjustment. Let's say just suddenly, all of a sudden, nobody wanted to take it. Well, we're not going to, we wouldn't go forward with the training yet.
Is that in the contract that we can back out at some point? Or?
Well, we did have quite a few people sign up, so I think that it would be, we know the trainer, I think should be really flexible.
It's still a contract though, so if 12 said they're gonna take it, then 12 better take it.
I'd really like to
We're
see.
committing to a contract so that if the trainer decided not to, now we basically committed $11,000 and people start backing out. We could be stuck for that funding, so.
Well, we could wait to approve it next month as well, then we have specific names of the people who are taking.
I'd like to see specific names because good graces only go so far with contracts. I mean, I have no doubt that we probably wouldn't have any issues, but I don't like to rely on a relationship when you've got a pen to paper. So I'd like to see committed names so that we know what we're paying for and who's part of the training.
What's the total eligible? I mean, 12 out of how many? Is all staff, all
They've
teachers?
already had.
Yeah, our initial interest was 12, and so we're hoping for more. So we wanted to make sure that we held those dates for the trainer and for the teachers, so they know what dates they are, so that they could plan for their summer. So we have, because we have several, like 3 different training options for them, all at different times. So a teacher could really pick all of the options if they wanted to, but I could talk with the trainer and we could set that back a month to approve. Mark, you have a comment?
Yeah, and is there a bottom number as to if you only have 3 people that actually commit to this? Are we gonna still pay that or do we say we're not gonna do that?
Well, and that's a good point. Originally, we had 12 people
prorated.
interested.
No, that's your question.
Okay.
Yeah, we had 12 interested, and so now we're getting them to officially sign up. But yes, if we only had 3, we would not do it. Good point.
I just really, I mean, like, this project-based learning is something that, I mean, a few years ago, teachers identified as a need, and it's something like you've talked a lot about with that middle school age model. I mean, it would just be really nice to see some interest, and they get paid for their days, correct?
Either that or credits, if they have credits. And it is in our strategic plan, and it's also in the governor's due north. So I think, we want to encourage the teachers to take it as well. It's just 3 days, I think it's the second week in June. So we hope that more than 12 people take it. For all K-12 teachers. And we're hoping that everybody take part of that opportunity. I think Mr. Meyer and Mr. Barr will be kind of encouraging everyone to sign up that can.
And what's the deliverable at the end? Do they have a project they're working on? Because I know
Yes.
last time we did this, we had a couple of teams that weren't comfortable with the program that she used and some other things that kind of, have we worked through all of that so that we can get from point A to point B?
Yes, and I think it does outline that in the contract as well, that they would have, one project-based learning unit, which actually encompasses big ideas, big outcomes, and formative assessment. It's kind of a backward design, and it incorporates reading and writing and inquiry within that. So I think, they'll all have a project, and then they'll work on it in the school year too.
Is it fair to come back next month when we have like official commitment before we kind of sign up to pay that much money?
So do we have to vote this down?
Yeah, so the motion is to approve the Cultivate 21 contract for professional development. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Okay, so, but I think the message has come back.
Yeah, we will do that.
So do we have to motion to table it?
I'll make a motion that we come back and revisit it next month when we've got firm numbers on who's participating and what the cost is. Will it be prorated based on the number of people participating, et cetera?
A motion by Dave. Do we have a second?
I second.
Second by Jason. All those in favor of having this on the agenda next month when we have firmer numbers, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. 10.9, approve Lake Park Audubon American Indian Education Plan. Motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mark. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Marv. Raina, I guess I have a question for you.
I was gonna say, is this different from the vote?
We have to wait for the vote.
That's what I thought.
It was on there because I was told to receive it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. All those in favor? All those opposed? Same sign?
Aye.
Yeah, we'll table it. Okay, then 10.10, closed meeting to discuss private personnel data. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Jason. Okay. Go to closed session. Okay, so we had a motion by Marge and a second by Jason to open the closed meeting back up. 10.12 findings, actions. So we didn't have any actions. We just spoke about the EA negotiations and kind of identified the areas that the board wants to work on in this round. Any other discussion? Okay, succeeding meetings, 11.1, April 13th is a special school board meeting at the Lake Park High School Media Center, and then reminder, we're doing the 1-hour work session after that. 11.2, April 16th, school board special meeting virtually. 11.3, April 17th, 2021, school board special meeting virtual at 8:30 a.m. 11.4, April 19th, school board special meeting, Lake Park High School Media Center, 4 p.m. 11.5, April 26th, 2021, school board regular meeting, Lake Park High School. These virtual meetings, I think we are actually here though. And they'll be on virtually, but we're actually here, correct?
Yeah, that's the interview night and day, right?
Okay, 12.0, future considerations for school board.
Can I ask a question? For the posting of that 13th, meeting on the 13th, is it, because what did he say, 45 minutes is probably the shortest, the first meeting would take? So do you want to post the work session for 5:45, knowing that we can start it late, but we can't start it early? Does that make sense?
We all good with that? I think it's gonna take at least an hour though, don't you, just
Make
based
it
on
posted
tonight?
after 6.
But I'm saying if you, at least if you post it early, we can start it late, where if you don't post it until 6:30, we can't start until 6:30.
So that makes sense to everybody. We can't start a meeting early, but we can start a meeting late.
So, or, I mean, and maybe you say 6 o'clock because then. you
Even
can have
6
a
gives you a
15
little bit
break.
of time for a break.
Any
Going to
other
6.
considerations?
The only other thing I would say is for these virtual meetings and these interviews, how are we going to do that? Should we be in separate rooms? Since all John's sitting
Yeah,
here.
John, that's really a question for you. So can we go back to having a monitor and a computer in each spot and just muting them and having the one microphone? But legally, once the facial, we're gonna have to spread out more in here for
So
distancing.
I've actually ordered headphones or headsets with microphones and whatnot, so. Yeah, when I talked to him, recommendation was just everybody stays at home, uses the laptop and whatnot, so.
Tonight we decided we're all here.
I'm motioning.
But would it make, could we go in separate different rooms? Would that work?
Well, I think, I mean, I thought we talked about, we kind of would all like to be in the same.
Well, we
room.
would, but if
But
it's
the
not,
problem is the distancing, and if you're spread out in a room like this, it's hard to pick up the audio with just one piece. Otherwise, if everybody's in the same room, you're gonna start picking up other people's audio, you're starting to get the feedback.
yep,
So that's where if we get everybody spread out, whether it's rooms here or just home, you can see each other on the screen.
Is it one computer, or can you have like three of us could be in one room and 4 in another room, just spread out? Like put 4 in here and 3 in another?
Well, then you run into the distancing issue, and then the
feedback.
the face, they want to see the face,
Yep.
facial expressions and whatnot.
Well, but 2 vaccinated people can now sit in a room with each other, correct? Right.
No, it's actually up to groups of up to 15.
But
I think if you're unvaccinated, you can be, or if you are vaccinated, you can be together.
I was prepared to hand out laptops to everybody who doesn't have one headset with microphone.
is it just, this is run through Google Meets?
Yeah, I think that's how.
Yeah, that's what it said tonight.
Because we use Teams at work, and then whenever you speak, then the camera zooms in on you using a headset. So if your camera's on, then you get that view. You don't see the.
Maybe if John's set up that way, we need to
Yeah, there's some
change.
challenges.
That's why I'm bringing it up. Maybe we need to change what we're doing if he's set up for us to not be here.
Is it really a big deal if we're all in the same room?
I think it's more for discussion.
Most of the time, I don't want to be in the same room with you people anyway.
So if we are not, if we stay home and we're not in the same
That
room,
goes both ways, Mark.
and I think we did decide we just want it projected here though. We don't want people to just be able to tune in online.
Here? Yeah, the plan was to have, basically this was a dummy participant, but no interaction. Basically just a broadcast of what's going on.
So people could be here.
The public would be here.
Yep.
Bring us that.
So if that's the way you're ready to do it, I think.
But, yeah, that's what was recommended based on what Lee and I talked about and kind of went over what other districts had. Let's just put it generally, they had very little success. So we advised to do something like that.
Would you still have all the feedback issues though if we had headsets and then you mute your mic when you're done? Takes a little bit longer, but you ask the question of whoever you're interviewing, mute the mic, and then they would respond, and then, because we're all gonna ask questions in sequence, so if you're not asking a question, everybody should be on mute.
Right.
But you're still not going to be able to be in this room without a mask.
If we're separated.
Yeah, I don't know that.
We're gonna have to do a trial run of it and see.
So we made a vote, well, we kind of decided at the last meeting. But
We did, but, I guess,
And what I'm saying is, do we need to amend that
I
right
think
now?
we have to amend it because that wasn't knowing what John's information was either.
I think we need, but he also said we need to do a trial run. So once we get all the pieces put together, then we can try it. If it doesn't work, then we can separate the different rooms in here or whatever, but we should walk through to make sure we don't have any technology glitches. We can do that in one of those work sessions.
I'm a walking technology glitch.
That's why
John knows.
that's why you can't be at home for this. Yeah, think about if you're at home, how's that gonna work?
I'll just shut it off.
So Susie, do we need a new motion? We need to amend the earlier one? To just say we'll do what Leah and John decide we're gonna do?
Basically, we're gonna be flexible to make it work,
I think
what it boils down to. So I don't think we need to change anything.
No, we've got.
We're gonna have a trial run, let's have the trial run, and then we'll do what we have to do after that, right?
But I think it would be good to have everybody, just because we talked about if Marv's at home and his computer dies, at least we're here, you can run to, if we're in 7 different classrooms, you can run to the classroom and try and diagnose it and fix it.
Is that a possibility to go to different rooms here?
Yeah, because.
Because I'm up for that.
Friday afternoon and Saturday morning, right?
Yep.
It's more than likely.
I don't have a problem coming here, I just don't wanna have I don't wanna have a nightmare for you to deal with, feedback and all these other things. Is what I'm.
Right, and it's mostly just quality of, you don't want to have bad experience.
But I think if we have the headsets, that'll help resolve a lot of
It
it.
will, my only apprehension is everybody's in the same room with the headsets, there's gonna be a little bit of a delay between what your ambient hearing is and what's coming through the mic. I don't know if that'll be distracting for anybody, some people find that very distracting. So, but like I said, the setup, we would drive on.
Okay, any other future considerations? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion, Mark?
Second.
Second by Mark.
Yeah, you too.
He looks a little- He's got a walk. I just noticed him.